Chapter 1. The bite happens before I understand what I am watching. 1 second, Cyran Velmire is standing at the altar with his hands at his sides. The next, his mouth is pressed to Othiel's neck, and the entire hall of Moon Harbor erupts in sound. Bells, cheering, the crash of ceremonial drums, and I am standing at the back of the room in a blue scarf that suddenly feels like evidence of something shameful. 3 years. 3 winters. 3 years of his scent on my pillow, his hands in my hair, his voice low against my ear saying things he never said anywhere else. 3 years of being the one he came to when the Pack Council drained him dry, when his body ran hot with dominance and his mind ran ragged with the weight of ruling this coastal kingdom perched above the Atlantic. 3 years of being chosen quietly behind every closed door in Moon Harbor, and now I am watching him choose someone else in front of every person who ever passed me in the hall and looked through me like glass. Othiel does not flinch when Cyran's teeth break skin. He closes his eyes like he has been waiting for this moment his entire life, which maybe he has. He is beautiful in that sharp, political way. Pale throat, silver blue robes, the kind of composure that costs years of practice. The council loves him. Old money loves him. The Pack bloodlines love what his family name does for the alliance maps stretched across Huxley Graves' office walls. I grip the back of the last bench with both hands and I do not make a sound. The hall smells like pine resin, candle wax, and the cold Atlantic air pushing through the glass walls. Outside, the ocean is doing what the ocean always does, moving, indifferent, enormous. I have always loved that about it. The ocean does not perform grief. It just keeps going. Cyran lifts his head. His eyes find me in the crowd the way they always do. Like I am a fixed point, like I am North, and for 3 full seconds we look at each other across a hall full of celebrating wolves and I watch him understand exactly what he has done. He does not stop the ceremony. He does not step down from the altar. He does not cross the room. He just looks at me, and I look back, and then I reach up and unwrap the blue scarf from my neck. I fold it once and then again the way he taught me to fold his field maps that first winter when we were still pretending it was practical for me to spend the nights in the command quarters. I set it on the bench beside me. It is a small, quiet motion. Nobody around me notices it, but Cyran sees it, and I watch something shift behind his eyes. Something that looks like the moment a fire runs out of wood. I turn and I walk out of the hall. The door closes behind me with a sound like a held breath finally released. The corridor outside is empty. My footsteps echo against the stone floors, and the cheering inside muffles and then fades as I put distance between myself and the ceremony. The Lighthouse Clinic is a 20-minute walk north along the coastal path. I know every rock. I have walked this path in the dark, in the rain, in every condition the Maine coastline invents. I walk it now without a lantern because I do not need one. I have memorized everything about this place. I memorized it the way you memorize a home you are always half afraid to lose. The clinic is cold when I enter. I light the iron lamp on the center table and stand in the amber circle of its light for a moment, looking at everything I built here. The shelves of labeled jars, chamomile, yarrow, bone-knit compound, fever bark. The patient records stacked in their cedar box. The journals, 12 of them, full front to back, written in my own handwriting, documenting 3 years of Moon Harbor's wounds and infections and grief-sick omegas and bond sickness that the council refuses to classify as real because naming it would make them responsible for it. I pull the journals first, then the treaty maps, the ones with my handwriting in the margins, the ones where I translated 3 different coastal Pack dialects during negotiations that Cyran's council took credit for. Then the records. Every patient file, every omega I treated who came to me bleeding from a bond that the law refused to recognize. I work quietly. I do not rush. I pack with the same precision I use when I compound medicine. Measured, deliberate, nothing wasted. When I am almost finished, my hand goes to my ribs. The ache has been there for 6 months. A deep interior pressure, like something pulling at a cord that has been stretched past its limit. I have a name for it now. Tamsin Vale gave me the name 3 months ago in a letter I burned after reading, because I did not want Cyran to find it. Ecobond decay. What happens when an omega's body accepts an alpha as a mate, builds around that bond like a house built around a tree, and the bond is never officially anchored. The body keeps feeding the connection, keeps offering itself to something that has no legal place to land. I was going to tell him tonight. After the ceremony, I was going to find him alone and tell him everything, the diagnosis, the timeline, the fact that an official claim might still stabilize the bond if it happened soon enough. I had the words prepared. I had been preparing them for 2 weeks. I press my hand flat against my ribs and breathe. Then I pick up my bag, and I blow out the iron lamp, and I walk out of the clinic without looking back. The ferry dock is a mile south. I go north. Chapter 2. 3 years earlier, the storm comes without warning. That is not unusual for the Maine coast. Moon Harbor sits on a crooked arm of Atlantic shoreline where the weather changes the way moods change. Fast, total, with very little logic connecting what came before to what arrives next. The lighthouse clinic sits at the highest point of the coastal path, and when a bad storm rolls in, the entire peninsula shakes. I am in the middle of resetting a fisherman's dislocated shoulder when the door blows open. The man who enters is soaked through. His dark hair is pressed flat against his forehead by the rain, and his coat, heavy canvas, salt-stained, the kind built for conditions like this, hangs open at the chest because whoever dressed his wound in the field did it badly and the bandaging is already half undone. He is tall in a way that changes the dimensions of a room. The kind of tall that comes with instinct, like his body understood before he did that it would need to be large enough to hold authority. He is bleeding from a deep cut along his left shoulder, and he is walking like the blood is irrelevant. I finish resetting the fisherman's shoulder. One firm motion, the pop of the joint returning home, the man's sharp exhale, and then I turn to face the alpha standing in the doorway of my clinic dripping Atlantic rain onto my floor. I know who he is. Everyone in Moon Harbor knows who Cyran Velmire is. You do not learn his face from an introduction. You learn it from the way every other alpha in a room recalibrates when he enters. The slight lean away, the lowered eyes, the unconscious shift toward the wall. He does not perform dominance. He does not have to. It sits on him the way weather sits on a cliff face, just present, just structural, not trying to be anything except exactly what it is. He scans the clinic the way a person scans for exits, and then his eyes settle on me. "I need the wound closed," he says. His voice is lower than I expected. There is no performance in it either. Just the statement, flat and direct, like he has never found a reason to soften a sentence in his life. I cross the room and look at his shoulder without touching it yet. The cut is long, 4 inches at minimum, deeper at the center than the edges, the kind of wound that comes from something fast and intentional. This was not a storm injury. Storms do not cut like this. "Sit," I say. He does not sit. He looks at me like the word did not register. "You should be afraid of me," he says, and it is not a threat exactly. It is almost a warning, delivered without malice, the way you might warn someone that a road ahead is washed out. I tell him. "That does not mean I will let you bleed on my floor." Something shifts in his face. Not a smile. More like the word smile adjacent, the faint muscular echo of surprise. He sits. I work. His scent hits me the moment I get close enough to start cleaning the wound. Thunderclouds, dark pine, cold salt water, and underneath all of it something warm that has no name in any language I know. It is the kind of scent that does not ask permission. It just arrives, moves directly through every careful wall I have built around my instincts, and makes itself at home. My hands do not shake. I am proud of that. I clean the wound with practiced efficiency, layer the bone knit compound along the deepest section, begin the closure stitches with the small curved needle I use for deep tissue work. His breathing is controlled and even. He watches my hands, not my face, my hands. Most alphas look at an omega's face when they want to establish dominance. They look for the instinctive dip of the eyes, the slight angle of submission that an omega's body will offer without the omega deciding to. Cyran watches my hands like he is more interested in what I am doing than in winning something. "The fisherman from the northern dock," he says after a long silence. "You treated them last week. 4 of them. Bren Calloway's crew." 5, I correct. He is quiet for a moment. "My records said 4. Your records were missing Anders Calloway. He came in 2 days after the others. Frostbite on both hands, starting to move up the left wrist. He was embarrassed about the severity. He waited too long. Another silence. Is he all right? It is not phrased as a question exactly, more like information he is deciding whether he needs. I tie the last stitch and sit back on my heels. He will keep both hands, I say. He came to me before the tissue died. Another day and the answer would have been different. Cyran looks at the closed wound on his shoulder. Then he looks at me. Why are you here alone? He says. The pack has a full medical staff. I begin cleaning the instruments. The pack's medical staff works regular hours. Storms do not work regular hours. He is quiet for long enough that I start to think the conversation is finished. Then he says, "What is your name?" Mireon Hale. You are not afraid of me, Mireon Hale. I already told you I am. Afraid people do not talk back. Afraid people do not get their wounds closed either. I say, you needed one or you needed the other. You could not have both. I stand and carry the instruments to the wash basin. Behind me, I hear him rise from the examination chair. I hear him pull his coat back on. I do not turn around. If I come back tomorrow, he says from the doorway, will you still pretend you do not feel it too? I keep my eyes on the basin. The door closes. My hands grip the edge of the sink for a full 10 seconds before they stop shaking. Chapter 3. He comes back the next morning. Not because he is injured. The wound is closing well. I can see that from across the room when he pushes back his sleeve to show me without being asked. An instinctive offering, like he already understands how I work. He comes back because he said he would, and Cyran Velmire, I will learn over the following months, does not say things he does not mean. He says very few things. That is part of it. He sits in the same chair as the night before and watches me work. Recataloguing the herb jars, relabeling 3 that have faded over the wet months, and he does not try to fill the quiet with conversation. He drinks the tea I put in front of him without commenting on it. When I ask him to rotate his shoulder to check the stitch tension, he does it without the resistance most alphas show when an omega gives them a direction. I ask him why he is really here. He says, the quiet. I believe him. There is something in the way he sits, not relaxed exactly but settled, the way a person sits when the room they are in requires nothing from them. That tells me the rest of his life gives him very little quiet. He is the alpha ruler of a coastal pack built on bloodlines and political architecture and old money family alliances that stretch back 4 generations. He carries that the way the lighthouse carries its light. Constantly, in all directions with no option to dim. He comes back the next week. And the week after. By the 3rd month, it is not a question of whether he will come but when. He starts arriving after council meetings, still carrying the tension of whatever argument just ended in his shoulders and jaw, and he sits in the clinic until his breathing evens out. I do not ask him to talk about it. I give him tea and I work and I let the room be what it is, a place where nothing is required of him except to exist without performing. The bond starts there, not in anything said, in the space between things. The first time he touches me it is accidental. His hand reaching for the tea and his fingers brushing the back of my wrist, and we both go very still. His scent sharpens. Mine answers it before I decide to let it. The sea salt and chamomile of me reaching toward the thundercloud and pine of him with an instinct that bypasses every careful, practical thought I have spent years building my life around. He pulls his hand back. I return to work. We do not speak about it for 6 weeks. Then one night in November, 9 months after the storm, Cyran comes to the clinic after a council meeting that apparently went badly enough to leave a bruise on his composure. He sits down and I bring him tea and he stares at the amber surface of it for a long time without drinking, and then he says very quietly, "They want me to take a political mate. A bonded alpha without a formal mate is a liability." That is the exact word they used. Liability. I set my work down. "What did you tell them?" I say. "I told them I would consider it." He looks at me. "I have not considered it." The room holds that for a moment. "Cyran," I say, and then I stop because I am 31 years old and I have never been in love before and I do not have a script for this. I have medical protocols for bond sickness. I have 14 journals full of careful observations. I have 3 years of memorizing the exact way his voice changes when he stops performing authority and simply talks. I have none of the words for the thing that has been living in my chest since November of last year. I say it anyway. I love you. My voice is steady, which surprises me. And it terrifies me, because I am starting to think you only love me in places where no one can see it. The silence that follows is very long. He sets the tea down. He stands. For one panicked second I think he is going to leave, cross the room, open the door, walk back out into the November dark. And then he turns to face me and his expression is something I have no word for, a thing built out of want and guilt and exhaustion so deep it has become structural. I am not ashamed of you, he says, and his voice has dropped below its usual register. I want you to understand that. I am not ashamed of you. Then what are you afraid of? I say. His jaw tightens. He looks at the window, at the black Atlantic outside, at the lighthouse beam cutting across the water on its endless rotation. He looks everywhere except at me for long enough that I understand he does not have an answer that satisfies him. I need more time, he says finally, and I make the mistake that will cost me everything. I believe him, not because I am naive. I believe him because I know him, the version of him that no one else sees, the version that drinks tea in silence and lets his shoulders come down and watches my hands with more honest attention than anyone has ever given me in my life. I believe that version of him is real. I believe it is capable of choosing me. Okay, I say. He crosses the room. He takes my face in both hands, gently the way a person handles something they are afraid of dropping, and he presses his forehead to mine, and for a moment we just breathe. Then he says, I will not always be a coward. It is the truest thing he has ever said to me. The tragedy is that it is also the thing he will fail to keep. Outside the clinic, in the dark, standing close enough to the window to see the shadow of 2 figures inside, Huxley Graves watches without moving. Chapter 4. The first time he kisses me, the whole Atlantic goes quiet. That is not real, obviously. The ocean does not pause for anything. But that is the way my body registers it. Like the sound of the water outside the clinic windows drops out completely and the only thing left in the world is the small charged distance between Cyra's mouth and mine, and then the closing of it. It happens in January, a year and 3 months after the storm. He has come from another council meeting. There is always another council meeting, and this time something happened inside it that he is not telling me yet. I can read it in the way he is sitting. Not the usual settled quiet. A different kind of stillness, the kind that comes when a person is holding something down. I bring his tea. He looks at it and does not pick it up. They brought up a name, he says. Othiel, the Aldrin family. The council thinks a formal alliance with the northern bloodlines would stabilize the territory boundaries they've been arguing over for 3 years. I sit down across from him. They want you to consider him, I say. They want me to commit to him. The lamp between us burns steady. Outside, January presses against the clinic windows with its full weight. What did you say? I ask. I said I would think about it. He looks at me. Mireon. I know. I am not going to. Cyra. I cut him off gently, but I cut him off. If you are about to tell me you are not going to do it, then I need you to understand what that costs. Not just politically. Inside the pack. Inside the council room. I need you to know what you are carrying when you make that choice, because I have been watching you carry impossible things for over a year, and I will not let you add this one without understanding the weight. He is very still. I know the weight, he says. Then tell me. He stands up. He crosses the room and he stops directly in front of me. Close, the closest he has stood since the night in November when he pressed his forehead to mine, and his scent hits me the way it always does. That dark pine and cold rain and underneath it the warm buried thing that has no name. My instincts go absolutely immediate. Every trained, careful, deliberate part of me that knows how to hold still in the presence of an alpha goes silent. And what is left is just want, clear and enormous, no container around it. The weight, he says quietly, is that I would give up every alliance and every bloodline agreement and every political benefit that Othiel's name brings to this pack before I would give up coming here. I look up at him. Then say it, I say. Out loud, Cyra. Not to me. To yourself. Say what that means. Something breaks open in his face. Not dramatically, not the way things break open in stories. Quietly, the way ice gives way after a long winter, more release than fracture. He bends down and he kisses me. The first second is cautious, his mouth barely touching mine, testing, like he is giving me every possible exit and waiting to see if I will take it. I do not take it. I grip the front of his coat in both hands and I pull, and the caution dissolves, and the kiss becomes something else entirely. Hungry and long delayed and full of every careful month of tea and silence and hands deliberately not touching and sense deliberately not acknowledged. He cups my face in both hands. I feel the size of them, the steadiness, and I understand for the first time in my adult life what it means to be held by someone who is choosing to be gentle when they do not have to be. It undoes something in me that I did not know was held together by tension. We stay like that for a long time. When we finally separate, he keeps his hands on my face. He is looking at me like I am a fixed point in a room that has been spinning for years. One day, he says, I will choose you in front of them. And I feel it then, the first time I feel it clearly enough to name it, the ache below my ribs, a deep interior pull like something stretching past its natural length. I press one hand flat against my side without thinking. Cyran notices. Did I hurt you? No, I say. It is not a lie exactly. The pain is not from him. It has been there for weeks, quiet and easy to dismiss. A consequence of something I have not let myself examine too closely because examining it would require admitting what it means. I drop my hand. I give him a version of a smile that is not far from the real thing. He believes me. Of course he does. I have spent 14 months learning exactly how to be readable enough to earn his trust and opaque enough to protect him from the things he cannot fix. He stays until just before dawn. When he leaves, he touches the back of my wrist at the door. Deliberate this time, not accidental, and then walks out into the January dark. I stand at the window and watch the lighthouse beam make its slow rotation across the water. Below my ribs, the ache quietly deepens. Outside the clinic, 50 feet down the coastal path, Huxley Graves is already on his way back to the council building with his hands clasped behind his back and his expression arranged into something that looks almost like satisfaction. Chapter 5. The ceremonial hall smells like pine resin, candle wax, and the lie I have been telling myself for 2 years. I notice the smell before anything else. Before the crowd. Before the drums. Before the way the candlelight catches Othiel's silver-blue robes and makes him look like something carved specifically for this room, for this moment, for this exact purpose. I notice the smell because my senses have been running sharper for months now, the Ecobond decay doing what Tamsin Vale's letter warned me it would do, heightening everything as the Bond phrase, like a dying signal broadcasting louder in its final hours. I am standing at the back of the hall in my blue scarf. I came because not coming would have been its own kind of statement. I came because I needed to see it. I need to be someone who looked directly at the thing that ended them instead of hearing about it through the pack gossip that moves through Moon Harbor like tidewater, relentless, reaching every crack. Cyran stands on the stone altar dais in his formal alpha blacks, which fit him the way authority fits him, like they were constructed for his exact dimensions. He is not looking at the crowd. He is not looking at Othiel yet either. His eyes are on the middle distance, that place he goes when he is running calculations, when he is weighing things, when the part of him that rules is taking over from the part of him that simply lives. Huxley Graves stands to the left of the dais in his council gray, his hands clasped low in front of him, his expression completely neutral in the way that only very deliberate people manage. He is not watching the altar. He is watching the room. His eyes move through the crowd with the patience of someone who has arranged something and is now waiting to see whether the arrangement holds. His eyes find me. They stay on me for 3 seconds. Then they move on. The drums begin. Othiel walks the center aisle with a composure I have to admit is extraordinary. Not rigid, not performed, but genuinely settled, like he has made his peace with this in advance. He is beautiful. I knew he was beautiful. I have seen him at 2 pack assemblies and twice at the harbor market, and each time the word that came to mind was architectural, precise and striking and built for public display. He reaches the dais. He stands beside Cyran. Cyran looks at him. Something crosses Cyran's face. Not tenderness, not the particular quality his face carries when he looks at me, but something more like resolve, the expression of a man who has decided on a direction and will not let himself look sideways. He hesitates. 1 second. Half a breath. The smallest pause between the moment before and the moment after. I see it. I know I am the only person in this entire hall who knows what that pause costs him, what it contains, what he is putting down in the space of it. Then his mouth finds Othiel's neck and the drums crash and the hall erupts. The bond mark splits me open from the inside. That is the only way I can describe it. Not metaphorically, not as emotional language. Physically. The ache below my ribs, which I have been managing for 6 months with pressed hands and controlled breathing and Tamsin's compound packed into small glass vials in my clinic cabinet, detonates. It moves through my chest like a wave hitting a structure that was already compromised. Not destroying it cleanly but finding every weakened joint and pulling them apart simultaneously. I do not make a sound. I grip the back of the last bench. I breathe through my nose. I wait for the wave to crest. Cyran lifts his head. His eyes find me the way they always do, north, fixed, immediate, and across the width of the celebrating hall, across the drums and the cheering and Othiel's composed, elegant stillness, we look at each other. I unwrap the blue scarf. I fold it once. I fold it again. I set it on the bench. Then I turn and walk out. The corridor is cold and empty and the sound of the ceremony muffles behind the closing door. I walk the coastal path without a lantern and I do not shake until I am inside the clinic with the iron lamp lit and the door bolted behind me. Then I let myself shake for exactly 60 seconds. I count. I have always found that counting during difficult moments gives the body a container. 60 seconds to be undone, and then I have work to do. I pack the journals first. All 12. Then the treaty maps, the patient records, the bond sickness documentation, 3 years of proof that what the council calls private complications are, in fact, a systematic medical failure that Munharber's law has chosen to ignore because ignoring it costs less than addressing it. I pack Tamsin's compound. 6 weeks' supply. I write 1 letter, fold it, and leave it on the examination table beneath the iron lamp where Cyran will find it if he comes here looking. It does not say everything. It says enough. Cough into my palm. The silver blue trace on my skin is darker than last week. I pick up my bag. Behind me, the iron lamp burns the letter's shadow long against the clinic wall, the shape of something folded and deliberate and already gone. The ferry dock is a mile south. I know the captain of the night crossing, not personally. By reputation. He is the kind of man who, for the right reasons, does not record names accurately. My boots hit the coastal path. The lighthouse beam sweeps across the water. Somewhere behind me, in the hall I just left, Moon Harbor is celebrating the bond that will cost them everything they never knew they had. I do not look back. And the thing inside my chest, the bond, the decay, the long-strained thread of everything Cyran and I built in stolen hours and clinic mornings, goes very, very quiet, like it already knows. Chapter 6. The ferry captain does not write my name in his log. He takes the folded bills I place on the rail between us, looks at my face once, looks at the bag over my shoulder, and looks back at the black water ahead of the bow. He does not ask where I am going. People who take the night crossing from Moon Harbor's southern dock without luggage labels and with the particular stillness I am carrying do not want to be asked where they are going. He has seen this before. I can tell by the economy of his silence. Not uncomfortable, just practiced. Gray Fen Island appears 2 hours later as a dark shape rising from the Atlantic, its single working lighthouse throwing a weaker beam than Moon Harbor's, the kind of light that guides you close enough to find the dock but does not advertise itself to the open sea. The island is not on most pack territory maps. That is intentional. Tamsin Vale explained it in her letter. Gray Fen exists in the legal gap between 3 pack jurisdictions, claimed by none of them, maintained by people who understand that the ones who need it most are always the ones that official systems have already failed. The dock smells like kelp and wood smoke and something medicinal underneath. Bone-knit compound and dried fever bark, the same things I keep in my own clinic, the smell of a place that treats people the official world pretends are not injured. A man is waiting at the end of the dock. He is not what I expect. I do not know what I expect, some version of institutional caretaking, perhaps, a person with a clipboard and a processing manner. What I get is a man my height, lean, with the kind of face that has spent years outdoors and shows it honestly, holding a lantern in his left hand and wearing a coat with 3 missing buttons like he forgot to replace them and never found the right moment. His scent reaches me before he speaks. Cedar and clean water and something warm at the base of it, not thundercloud warm, not the kind of warmth that arrives like a weather system and rearranges the room. Quieter. The warmth of a fire that does not need to prove it is burning. His name is Sale Orwin. He says, "You made the night crossing alone." Not a question, not a judgment, just an acknowledgement of what he is observing. "Yes," I say. "Come inside," he says. "There's tea." That is the entire introduction. He turns and walks up the dock path toward a low stone building with lit windows, and I follow him, and it is the simplest arrival of my adult life. No scent assessment, no dominance check, no alpha instinct moving around me like weather looking for a gap. Just, "Come inside, there is tea." Sale Orwin is an alpha. I register it the way you register a fact, clinically, without the full-body response that Cyra's presence always triggered. The difference is not that Sale is weaker. The difference, I will understand slowly over the following days, is that Sale has done something difficult and rare. He has separated his instincts from his behavior. His alpha nature is present the way a person's height is present. A fact about him, not a method of control. He shows me a room with a sea-facing window and a wool blanket on the bed that is clearly old and clearly clean. He puts a glass of water on the table beside the bed. He says, "Tamsin sent word. I know why you are here. We can talk about everything in the morning." Then he leaves and closes the door, and I sit on the edge of the bed in my coat for a long time listening to the Atlantic move against the rocks below the building. The bond inside my chest is quiet. Not gone. I would feel it if it were gone, I think. Gone would feel like amputation. This feels like a signal getting weaker, like standing in a valley with a radio while the source moves beyond the next ridge. Still there, fading. In the morning, Tamsin Vale sits across from me in the stone building's main room with both of my wrists in her hands and her eyes closed. She is 70, maybe older, with the particular stillness of someone who has spent decades learning to listen to bodies that do not know how to ask for help. She holds my wrists for a long time. Then she says, 6 months at the rate you're going. Possibly 8 if we manage the stress load carefully and you stop doing whatever you've been doing that's been accelerating the decay. Loving someone who would not claim me, I say. She opens her eyes. Yes, she says. That. The diagnosis is not a surprise. But hearing it in another person's voice, in a room I have never been in before, on an island where no one knows my face, it lands differently. It becomes real in a new way, the way a word becomes real when you say it out loud for the first time after only thinking it. 8 months. I ask for paper. Tamsin looks at me with the expression of someone who expected this question and is relieved I asked it quickly. There's a recording device too, she says. Voice. If you want your words to carry the way your voice carries them. I take the paper first. Old habit. I begin the first letter to Cyra with the same precision I use when I write patient records. Date, condition, relevant history. Then I stop. I put the pen down. I pick up the recording device instead. I press the button. I say, Cyra, if you are hearing this, you waited too long. I say it without anger. That is the most honest part. There is no performance in my voice, no wound dressed up as accusation. Just the fact, delivered the way I deliver every medical fact, clearly, completely, without softening it past the point of usefulness. Then Sale knocks on the open door and sets a cup of tea on the table beside me without entering the room, without asking if I want company, without doing anything except making sure I have what I need and then leaving the choice of what comes next entirely to me. And I understand, sitting in that stone room with the Atlantic outside and 8 months ahead of me, that this is what I should have been given all along. Chapter 7. Back in Moon Harbor, the infirmary runs out of fever bark on the 4th day. I know this because Sale tells me. Not because he is surveilling Moon Harbor, because one of the pack's younger healers, a 22-year-old Omega named Derry Ash, makes the crossing to Gray Fen 3 weeks after I arrive, shaking and exhausted, with a patient file under one arm and the specific expression of a person who has discovered that the system they relied on was only working because one person inside it was working constantly. Derry sits at the long table in the main room and tells me what the infirmary looks like now, the fever bark gone, The bone knit compound running low because no one knows how I made the batch I made. The treaty translation that broke down at the Eastern Boundary meeting because the pack sent an official translator who did not speak the Greycliff dialect and I was the only person in Moon Harbor who did. I taught myself that dialect over 2 winters from a grammar book I found in the Lighthouse Clinic's back cabinet, cross-referenced against letters from Greycliff traders that passed through the harbor market. Nobody knew I spoke it. Nobody thought to ask. I was the medic, the quiet one. The one who appeared when something needed to appear and receded when the room wanted to move on. Derry looks at me across the table and says, 3 pack families have already said they're reconsidering their territory agreements. Huxley Graves told the council it's an external political problem. He said the timing is coincidental. It is not coincidental, I say. I know that, Derry says. I came here because I know that. He stays for 2 days. He is the first person from Moon Harbor I have spoken to since the night of the ceremony, and he is the first person who has looked at me since I was 17 years old and said, without any angle behind it, "We did not know what you were holding up until it wasn't held anymore." I give him a written version of the bone knit formula. I give him the Greycliff grammar notes. I give him 4 weeks of fever bark compound from my own supply, which Tamsin allows because she has more stock on the island than I brought with me. He packs it carefully and takes the morning crossing back. Meanwhile, in the stone room with the sea-facing window, I keep recording. The letters to Cyra are not what I expected them to be. I expected grief. I expected the kind of raw, unmanaged feeling that I held down for 6 months and never let surface because there was always something more immediate to handle. What comes out instead is something clearer, not cold, not detached, but honest in the way that things become honest when the person you were protecting yourself for is no longer in the room. I tell him about the bond sickness. I tell him what ecobond decay actually is, the medical literature on it, the pack council records that Huxley Graves had classified as internal use only, the 17 other Omegas in Moon Harbor's history who died of conditions that the official cause of death records listed as natural decline. I found those records in the Lighthouse Clinic's locked lower cabinet 2 years ago. I copied every one into Journal 8. Journal 8 is currently in my bag on Gray Fen Island. I tell Cyra all of this in the recordings, not to destroy him, to complete the record that the council burned. Sale finds me on the cliff path one morning, 11 days after I arrive, sitting with the recording device in my lap and the Atlantic spread out below us in its usual enormous indifference. He sits beside me without preamble and looks at the water. "You loved him a long time," he says. "Yes," I say. "You're still angry." "I'm past angry," I say. "Angry would be easier. What I am is clear." He is quiet for a moment. The wind moves between us. "What does clear feel like?" he says, and it is not therapy speak, not a technique. He genuinely wants to know. I can tell because he is looking at the water while he asks it, not at me, giving me the answer space without the pressure of being watched. Like I finally stopped explaining myself to someone who wasn't listening. I say. He nods. He does not try to improve on that. We sit there for a while. The recording device is cold in my hands and the bond in my chest is quieter than it was yesterday. And Sale Orwin smells like cedar and clean water and a life that does not require me to be smaller than I am. And I do not love him yet, but I understand for the first time that this specific quality of being in someone's presence without bracing for what they will require, is what I was hungry for the entire time I was in Moon Harbor. Then Sale's expression shifts. He looks down at the dock path below the cliff, and I follow his eyes and I see Othiel. Not a version of Othiel I have seen before. Not the composed, architectural Othiel from the ceremony hall in his silver-blue robes. This Othiel is wearing a plain traveling coat. His face is stripped of everything performed. He is standing at the Gray Fen dock looking up at the cliff like a man who has made a very difficult decision and is now standing on the other side of it in the wind, waiting to find out if it was the right one. He has a sealed envelope in his hand. He raises it just slightly when he sees me looking, and my stomach drops, because the wax seal on that envelope is not his family crest. It is Huxley Graves' seal, and it has already been broken open. Chapter 8. Othiel sits at the long table in the stone building and puts the envelope flat on the surface between us, face down, like he cannot look at it anymore. Sale stands near the window with his arms crossed. Not threatening, just present. Tamsin leans against the doorframe with her healer's eyes reading Othiel the way she reads all bodies, looking past the surface for the thing underneath. Othiel says, "I found it in Huxley's filing cabinet. The one in the council annex. The locked one that everyone assumes only holds budget documents." He pauses. Not for effect. He is clearly a man who does not pause for effect. He pauses because the words are sitting hard in his throat. My family's name is in it. Specifically, a communication between Huxley and my father dated 14 months ago. He slides the envelope toward me. I do not pick it up immediately. I look at his face first. This is medical training, but it is also something older, learning to read what a person's body is doing before accepting what their mouth produces. Othiel's hands are still. His shoulders are carrying something heavy, and he is not trying to hide it. His eyes are not performing guilt. They are carrying it, which is different. Performance looks outward. This is looking inward. I pick up the envelope. The letter inside is 1 page. Huxley Graves writes in a compressed, efficient hand. Every word chosen for maximum information per line. No decorative language. The penmanship of a man who considers emotion and inefficiency. The letter says that the Aldrin family approached the council 18 months ago with a proposal. The proposal was this: Othiel would be positioned as the preferred political mate for Cyran Velmire. The council would apply sustained pressure until Cyran accepted. In exchange, the Aldrin family would release their claim on 3 disputed coastal territory boundaries and absorb 2 outstanding pact debt agreements. The letter also says that the Omega, currently in an unofficial arrangement with the Alpha ruler, posed a complication. It uses the phrase unofficial damage. It says that Mireon Hale's removal from the situation was a necessary precondition for the arrangement's success, and that the marking ceremony should proceed before the unofficial party had an opportunity to formalize his position. The last paragraph is the one that empties me out completely. It says that the council medical records regarding ecobond decay in unclaimed Omegas had been reviewed and reclassified as internal documents at Graves' direction, and that the Omega in question had shown physical symptoms consistent with advanced bond strain, making his long-term presence in Moon Harbor a political liability regardless of the arrangement's outcome. They knew. Huxley Graves knew I was dying. He knew the bond was killing me. He knew that an official claim from Cyran could have stabilized it. And he accelerated the timeline of the marking ceremony specifically to close that window before Cyran had a reason to choose me instead. I put the letter down on the table. Sale is looking at me. He has read the change in my scent. I can tell by the way his posture shifts, a fraction of a degree toward me, not protective exactly, just present in a more deliberate way. Cedar and clean water and the particular steadiness of someone who has decided that whatever I need right now, he will provide without being asked to. Othiel says, I did not know any of it. I want you to understand that. My father told me this was a standard political arrangement. He told me Cyran was unattached. He told me you were a clinic worker with no formal relationship to the Alpha household. His voice breaks on the last sentence, not dramatically, just the way a voice breaks when a person realizes they were a tool in someone else's plan and the weight of it arrives all at once. I would not have agreed if I had known. I believe him, not because I want to, because his body is not lying. Othiel, I say. He looks at me. You were also used, I say. He closes his eyes. 1 breath, 2. Then he opens them again. And what is in them is something tired and undecorated and real. I left, he says. 3 days after the ceremony, I told Cyran I needed space to consider my position. I do not think he tried very hard to change my mind. He looks at the letter. I think he already knew something was wrong. Not about the arrangement specifically. About himself. About what he had put down in order to stand on that altar. I think about the hesitation. That single half-breath pause before Cyran's teeth found Othiel's neck. The only moment in the entire ceremony where the man I know broke through the Alpha ruler's surface and showed himself. Cyran does not know about this letter. I say. No, Othiel says. I came here first. I thought you deserved to know before anyone made any decisions about what to do with it. The room is quiet for a long moment. Then Tamsin pushes off the doorframe and walks to the table and picks up the letter with the careful hands of a woman who has handled evidence of other people's cruelty before and knows that the handling matters. "This is the same document type as the classified medical records," she says. "Same filing system. If one set exists, the others exist." She looks at me. "Your journals document the medical cases," she says. "This letter documents the motive for suppressing them. Together they are not a private grievance." She sets the letter back on the table. "They are a case." My hand goes to the recording device on the shelf beside me. I press the button. And this time, I am not recording a letter to Cyra. Chapter 9. Cyra arrives on a Tuesday, alone, with no pack markings on his coat. I know it is him before I see him. My bond has been fading for weeks, going quiet the way a tide goes out. Gradually, then completely, but some remnant of it, some last thread still tethered in the muscle of my chest, registers his approach the way it always has. North. Fixed. Immediate. I am sitting on the cliff path with a wool blanket across my lap and the Atlantic below me doing what it always does, and I feel the bond pull in a direction I have not felt it pull since the night of the ceremony, and I close my eyes for exactly 3 seconds, and then I open them and look down at the dock path. He is thinner. Not dramatically. Cyran Velmire will never look diminished in the way ordinary people look diminished. But there is something in his carriage that was not there before. A weight that has found a new address. He carries it the way people carry things they have stopped pretending are light. Sail appears beside me without sound. He has that quality, arriving without announcing it, present before you register the transition. He looks down at the dock and then looks at me. "I'll be inside," he says. "That is all. No instructions, no questions, no management of the situation." He leaves me the cliff and whatever is about to happen on it. Cyra finds the path up from the dock and he climbs it, and when he is close enough that I can see his face clearly, I see what the 6 weeks since the ceremony have done to him. The composure is still there, the architecture of it, but it is thinner, a coat that fits the same but no longer insulates. He stops 6 feet from where I am sitting. He looks at me and I watch him process what he is seeing. The blanket, the pallor I know has gotten worse, the particular quality of stillness I carry now that I did not carry in the clinic, the stillness of someone who has stopped bracing for a blow that already landed. He opens his mouth. "Moon Harbor needs," he starts. "That is not what you should say first," I tell him. He closes his mouth. He stands there in the sea wind in his unmarked coat with both hands at his sides, and for a moment he looks exactly like the man who sat in my clinic 3 years ago refusing treatment. Too proud to ask for the thing he needs, too intelligent to pretend he does not need it. Then something in him breaks the way I watched it break the night he kissed me. Quietly, without performance, the way things break when a person finally stops holding them together by force of will alone. He crosses the remaining distance and he goes to one knee in the grass, right there on the cliff path with the Atlantic behind me and the wind between us, and he says, "I am sorry. Not for losing you, for hiding you, for making patience into something I used against you, for telling myself that waiting was protection when it was cowardice dressed in better language." He looks up at me. "I am sorry that you were sick and I did not know because you protected me from knowing. I am sorry that the system that was supposed to protect you was used against you with my name on it, and I did not look closely enough at the room I was standing in to see it happening." His voice is steady, but it is costing him. I can hear the cost. "I am sorry it took losing you for me to understand what kind of man I actually was inside all of that political architecture." I look at him for a long time. "Stand up, Cyra," I say. He stands. I reach out and I take his face in my hands, the reverse of every moment in the clinic where he held mine. I hold his face the way he held mine, steadily, like something I am choosing not to drop, and I look at him at close range for the last time with the bond still present enough to feel, and I say, "I loved you. I still do, somewhere that does not have a better word than somewhere. But love is not always a door back. Sometimes it is only proof that something mattered before it ended." He grips my wrists, not hard, just holding. "Mireon," he says, "you cannot dissolve the bond with Othiel and come here and fix this." I say, "The decay is too advanced. 6 weeks ago, maybe. Not now. What you can do, I pause, and I hear my own voice doing what Tamsin's voice did when she told me the timeline. Clear, complete, not softened past usefulness. Is take the recordings. Take the letter Othiel brought. Take Journal 8, which documents every Omega in Munharber's history who died of what they called natural decline and what I call systematic abandonment. Take all of it back to Moon Harbor and do the thing you have been too afraid to do since the moment you stood on that altar. He looks at me like a man standing at the edge of a decision he has been approaching for 3 years. What is that? He says. Choose something harder than what is comfortable. I say. Choose it publicly, where it costs you. I drop my hands from his face. He does not move for a long moment. Then he reaches into his coat and removes the blue scarf, my blue scarf, which I left on the bench in the ceremonial hall, and places it in my hands with the careful deliberateness of someone returning something they should never have let go. I look down at it. When I look up, his eyes are wet, and he is not hiding it. When I am gone, I say quietly, will you protect your crown, or will you protect the Omegas your crown has been hurting? He does not answer right away. He stands in the wind and he looks at me, and I watch the answer form in him the way I have always watched things form in him. Slowly, honestly, without the performance of certainty he usually wears. Both, he says. We're never supposed to be different things. Chapter 10. I die on a Thursday, before the winter fully breaks. That is not how I would have chosen to write it, but I have been writing honestly for 6 weeks and I am not going to stop now. Sale is with me. He is sitting in the chair beside my bed with his hand open on the blanket near mine. Not holding, just available. The way he has been available since the night I stepped off the ferry with a bag full of journals and a bond unraveling in my chest. When it happens the way Tamsin said it would, quietly, like a signal that has been fading finally going still. The Atlantic is loud outside the window. I am grateful for that. I have always believed the ocean is the most honest thing in the world. It does not perform. It does not soften itself for the room. It just moves, enormous and indifferent and relentless, and there is a kind of peace in being near something that does not need anything from you. Cyran is not there. He left 4 days earlier with the recordings, with Journal 8, with Othiel's letter, and with the particular expression of a man who has been handed the most difficult task of his life and has finally decided he is going to be equal to it. He held my hand at the door for a long time before he left. He did not speak. There was nothing left to say that the previous days had not already said, and Cyran has always understood the difference between words that add and words that fill. Sale stays. He stays through the night after and through the morning, and he is the one who sends the message to Tamsin, and he is the one who sits with me in the stone room and reads aloud from the Gray Fen logbook. The names of everyone who came to this island, the dates they arrived, the conditions that brought them, and what became of them, until I ask him to stop reading and just talk to me. He talks. He tells me about the Omega he lost 5 years ago to a similar condition. Not identical, but close enough that the shape of it is familiar. He tells me the man's name was Cole. He tells me Cole had the same quality I have, the quality of managing other people's weight so naturally that no one noticed it was management until he stopped. He tells me that after Cole died, Sale spent a year being furious at the system and another year learning how to build something inside it that the system could not easily erase. Gray Fen, I say. Gray Fen, he says. He looks at me with the honest face of a man who has learned, through loss, that care does not require possession. He has never asked me for anything. Not my attention, not my gratitude, not the particular alpha satisfaction of being someone's rescue. He just sat beside me and made sure I had tea and paper and a window facing the water, and somewhere in the simplicity of that, I found the room to become clear. Sale, I say. Yeah, he says. Don't let them make this private. I say. I won't, he says. In Moon Harbor, on the morning of the 41st day after I left, Cyran stands in the ceremonial hall. The same stone altar, the same glass walls overlooking the Atlantic, and he plays my recordings. My voice fills the room. I do not accuse with hatred. That was never the point. I explain. I use the same voice I used in the clinic, clear, complete, no softening past usefulness, and I explain what ecobond decay is, what it does, how it moves through a body that has given everything to a bond the law refuses to recognize. I explain what the council knew and when they knew it and what they chose to do with that knowledge. I explain 17 names, 17 Omegas across 4 decades of Moon Harbor history, who died of causes the pack records labeled as natural but my journal labeled as systematic failure. I explain what an unofficial arrangement does to a person. Not in dramatic language. In medical language, because medical language is precise and precision is a form of respect that nobody gave those 17 people while they were living. Othiel stands at the front of the room, and when the recording ends, he steps forward and confirms every word of it from his own experience. His voice does not shake. I think he has been preparing for this moment since the day he opened that filing cabinet and found the letter with his family's name in it. He is not performing bravery. He is simply done being used for other people's comfort. Huxley Graves is escorted from the hall before the second recording finishes playing. The hidden mate law reform takes 4 months. It is not fast. Real change is never fast. But it moves, the way the ocean moves, relentlessly, reaching every crack, indifferent to the resistance of the shore. The lighthouse clinic reopens with 3 healers. Derry Ash runs it. He sends a letter to Gray Fen every month with the patient count and the treatment notes, addressed to me even though I am not there to receive them. Sale reads them aloud on the cliff path on Thursday mornings. Cyran does not take another mate. He spends the remainder of his leadership doing the thing I asked him to do on the cliff, choosing the harder, public thing when it costs him, which it does regularly because systems built on convenience do not give up their convenience without argument. On the 1st anniversary of my death, he places the blue scarf in a glass case in the lighthouse clinic beside a plaque with my name on it. Not as a lover he owned. As the person whose truth changed what Moon Harbor decided it was willing to be. Years later, a young Omega walks into the clinic for the first time and looks at the plaque and asks the healer at the front desk who Mireon Hale was. Cyran is there that day visiting and he hears the question and he answers it himself. He says, "He was the one who taught us that love hidden too long becomes a wound. He did love me. That was the tragedy. He simply loved his crown louder." And somewhere the Atlantic keeps moving, enormous, honest, indifferent, and the lighthouse beam makes its slow rotation across the water, and Gray Fen Island sits in the gap between 3 jurisdictions where the law cannot reach it, and the names of everyone who came there in the dark and found something like safety are written in the logbook in Sale Orwin's careful hand. My name is in it too. Page 1, line 1. The first entry that was never meant to be the last. If the story reached something in you, share it with someone who needs to hear that being invisible does not mean you are not essential. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story on this channel. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to read today.